to the track, the wall, makes the leap, and makes the catch! Amazing catch by Junior! He got it! A perfect game! 13 strikeouts! Line pitching out towards straightaway center field, drifting out toward right center, shot at the wall, leaps up, and he makes the catch! Mike Trout with another spectacular grab! There is out number 2. Bonds hit play high. Hits it deep. It is out of here. 7:56. What a special moment for Barry Bonds. Swinging a long drive. Deep to right. Going. Goodbye. He has done it. He has changed the game of the night.
Hello and welcome to Champions Adjust, the baseball podcast, potentially more than just baseball, but who knows?
As time goes on.
Sure. This might just become a sports podcast, but right now, Coach Bodson and I can only do baseball because there's a lot of sports to cover, so we'll talk a little bit of baseball today, but this is Season 2 of Champions Adjust podcast, Episode 1. Coach Bodson and I are here. We're going to run through some trades that happened in the offseason. We're going to talk about the lockdown that's currently happening and will still most likely be happening when this episode drops, which will be in like 3 days from now, because today is January 24th, 2022, and we're fired up. So a little housekeeping before we get into those few little nuggets, and we'll talk about some coaching that we started, the new organization that we're doing, really, really exciting, fun stuff that's happening. We're pumped about it.
Very excited.
And some housekeeping stuff. The best way to support the podcast or Champions Adjust in general is just to watch the podcast, share it with your friends, go to iTunes or Spotify and give us a review, rate it. That more positive reviews we get puts it in more people's feeds, more people watch it, more people can be exposed to the good stuff that we're talking about here on Champions Adjust. Also, you can subscribe to our newsletter, which the plan for the newsletter is that Bodson and I will construct a newsletter that goes out every Wednesday, giving you some things that he's reading baseball-wise, maybe some coaching tips from him and some mindset tips from me, and that'll be the idea I have for the Champions Adjust mindset letter. But we don't have enough people subscribed now to make that worthwhile for us putting in that work. Yeah. So if you subscribe, you can get that bit of nugget from us either on a Wednesday or a Thursday, maybe do it the day before a pod and then give you the pod on the Thursday. But we're just kind of constructing some ideas to make this better, more interaction with the people that watch this. And of course, you can buy the merchandise that's also at champsadjust.com. We got these hats, beanies, hoodies, zips, and some few shirts that are available. Low stock in the shirts. We did pretty well on those.
Good.
Not sure when they'll be restocked. We might just do some different designs. But the merch that's up there now will be up there for a while until we go to like a fall line, which is what I'm imagining. But other than that, welcome back. Thanks for coming back to watch the show. And we're going to hop right into Coach Bodson's got us. We're going to go right into the lockdown right now.
Great.
And then we'll shift to what we're doing, and then we'll shift to some trade deadlines or stuff that happened at the trade deadline, off-season deals, because that stuff's exciting.
Excited to go over that stuff. That was like my Super Bowl.
Yeah.
It was that week and a half.
Speaking of Super Bowl, if you watched the NFL over the weekend, some of the best games that ever happened in terms of competition, close games, under pressure, amazing players, all that stuff.
Good, clean football.
Like, amazing game. One of the best games, games I've ever watched.
Makes me kind of happy that the Cowboys didn't beat the Niners, because we got to see a really good, clean football game.
Wow. What an intense game in Green Bay.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun to watch. And I would not have had much fun to watch if the Cowboys were playing. But anyway,
lockdown.
So
we're in a lockdown right now.
MLB lockdown. We are in the middle of a lockdown right now, which a lot of people are overreacting. Oh my God, I can't believe how selfish everybody is. Well, wait a second. It's a business decision, right? And it's better to be in a lockdown in the middle of the offseason than to have a work stoppage. So this is like best case scenario for, I wouldn't say all sides, because it's still a headache.
Yeah.
But players are still able to work out and rehab and get things done. Not on the dime of the team, but they're still able to keep themselves in shape. And it's not as if there would be a whole lot going on. You know, they do like winter camps sometimes in January, where they get the younger, bigger prospects together, saying, "Hey, let's meet at the stadium, at the big stadium, and let's get you some training." So that's not going to happen. But minor leaguers don't report until February 28th. Pitchers and catchers supposed to report mid February. So we're still, in that little gray area where it's really not affecting the game too much. Update is that the MLB negotiators and the MLBPA negotiators met today. The players submitted a counter offer to the owners with negotiations set to continue this week. Technically tomorrow. Actually, today was the first time they met since December 1st, as they broke for holidays, making sure everybody can enjoy themselves, as should be the case, because the MLB season is a long one, and the offseason is a gruesome one. So everybody got to enjoy themselves a little bit. So negotiations are ongoing this week. We all have our own little sources here and there. I've heard different mumblings of, hey, might take a little bit longer than expected. The players seem to be really digging their feet into the ground a little bit. Yeah. Based off what I'm hearing. So this might not go as quickly as we want, but that's not necessarily bad, because if we look at what happened in 2020, where there was a work stoppage that was an act of God, we also see the fact that they were trying to take money out of players' pockets in the middle of a pandemic. And I think you and I had talked about it at the time, and some other people were talking about it too. It's like, man, this isn't going to be good for the negotiations in 2 years, because this is already kind of starting off in bad faith. So everybody who is an avid listener of this podcast knows my thoughts on Rob Manfred at this point. Don't have to say it again and get in trouble from Aaron. But I've said it before, and I won't say it again. I'm just not a huge fan of his. I don't think that he really works in good faith. I don't think he necessarily cares as much about the game itself or the players. It's a business to him. It's a business decision, which is a good way sometimes to run a business. But if you run it with no emotions for other human beings, then does that make you a good CEO of a company if you don't care about your employees? We could be looking at his second work stoppage in 3 years of the 7 years he's been commissioner of the game, which means that over 30% of the years he's been commissioner of the game, there'll be a work stoppage, and that just doesn't bode well for the commissioner of baseball to me.
Yeah. I think about this, like, I'll preface this with saying that I know that Twitter specifically
gruesome
is not completely the reality of what's happening maybe in the boardrooms or in the offices, right? But when Rob Manfred,
did I say Manfred?
Manfred?
I don't actually care about the guy.
That guy's name, when his extension got announced via social media on Twitter, that's where I saw it. I'm sure it was announced on ESPN and whatever.
Sure.
But when I saw it be announced on Twitter, the reaction to it was one of the worst and poorest reactions that I've seen from a group of people on Twitter. So specifically, we're talking about baseball Twitter. Baseball fans sure. And journalists and what players could say, right? They can't say a lot because he is the commissioner of baseball. But from that collective group of baseball Twitter, that was one of the worst reactions I've seen from a contract extension. And just days after, who's the journalist that got fired? You know what I'm talking about?
You're talking about...
it was like 2 days before.
Ken Rosenthal.
Yeah. Ken's great.
I mean, he got fired because MLB owns the MLB Network, and he said things disparaging the commissioner on Twitter.
Right.
So they fired him from MLB Network, which is
he was being honest
insane.
And doing his journalistic integrity.
Right.
And then right after, I don't know if it was a day after, 2 days after, it could have been an hour, right? It was a few weeks ago. But then the reaction on top of that to the commissioner's extension was so poor. So just based on those reactions, you can tell what the consensus is of commissioner. Now, again, I prefaced it before by saying it's just Twitter. It's not exactly real life. But, and we spoke about this season 1, about some of the actions he's been taking that aren't really conducive to what can make baseball the best, which is what we want. We want MLB and baseball and the minor leagues and all the levels underneath, specifically the youth, because we coach youth baseball, and all trickles down for the most amount of people to love and enjoy the game of baseball, because it's changed our lives, and we want that other people to have that thrill and that joy. And so it does trickle down, even when you think about a 13-year-old kid just playing for Wolfpack baseball. Which we'll get to that in a sec. And so that's what I think about it. That's like where I get my consensus. And I've spoke about it, how his decisions, the extra inning rule was weird, but at least he took that away. and some of these things he's trying to implement in minor leagues
for postseason.
Right.
I mean, who knows
what's going to happen in regular season.
Do you want to go over I have in front of us what is being proposed? We can explain to the viewers what's going on.
Absolutely.
So there are big key components about spending. There's key components about players wanting mid-market teams to be able to compete more. They want to expand playoffs because that makes more money for them. They want to push up free agency. So I'll go through this real quick so that you guys have a better idea. But the MLB wants to gradually raise the luxury tax threshold to $220 million. That's gradually across the next 4 years, meaning that over time, teams can spend more money without overspending and getting hit with a big tax, what you call the luxury tax. Which we don't have to go into the finances of that right now, but it's not fun for teams, especially in the mid-market, to go over that luxury tax because they don't have a whole lot of money to spend on it.
Now, for people, for example, who are 2 or 3 teams that you would say are mid-market teams?
Let's go Minnesota Twins.
Yeah.
I would even go Toronto Blue Jays is relatively mid-market. They
I
don't
would
have
say
a ton
at least
of money.
in the last few years, yeah.
Yeah, what's I'm trying to think.
Oakland A's.
The Oakland A's are by choice a mid-market team. By choice, they're a mid-market team. We're looking at the St. Louis Cardinals are relatively mid-market. They're not a huge market. They're obviously a long-time winning franchise, the second winningest franchise in baseball history, but they're not a major market team. They don't get a ton of money in revenue shares,
right?
Which is why they don't spend a lot in the free agency. So the players, as a counter, wants to immediately raise that threshold an additional $25 million, meaning that teams can spend up to $240 million, $245 million on a salary on a given year without having to pay more back, right? Which means that teams like the St. Louis Cardinals would only be spending $240 million in their roster, not $240 million plus a taxation.
Right.
And that's a big deal to mid-market teams. Additionally, MLBPA wants free agency to get pushed up to at 5 years of service versus current 6 years, or 29 and a half years of age. Currently, it's at 6 years of service time. So what they want is players who are under team control to get paid quicker. So you're seeing a lot of teams do that now where they're like, hey, you're in your 3rd year, we're going to go ahead. Wander Franco is a good example. Hey, we know you're going to cost us a lot more money in 3 years. We're going to give you a ton of money right now because you're going to be worth more than that per the market in 3 years.
Right.
The MLBPA wants players to hit that mark quicker.
Okay.
Which, look at the mid-market teams. Mid-market teams has a guy like that who they can't afford to pay that much money that quickly, right? You look at the Oakland A's. Oakland A's never extend players. So it would mostly affect teams like the A's who have these guys, and instead of they have, hey, I have you for 6 years of service time, well, now I have you for 5 years of service time, and you're going to go somewhere else where you're going to make a lot more money.
Yeah.
Like the Yankees or the Dodgers.
Right.
The MLB also wants for there to be draft compensations for teams that don't manipulate the service time. So we'll go with examples of players who are so good that players will keep the teams will keep those players in the minor leagues an extra 3 months just to manipulate the service time, so they don't have to overpay up a year.
Right.
So the MLBPA wants teams who don't do this to get rewarded, with draft picks. Additionally, the MLBPA wants to raise the minimum salary, and they want to make more money available to what they call the Super 2 players, which is like a subset of players whose quality for arbitration is 4 times rather than 3 times, basically. Which we can get into that if we ever want to get into contract talk. I can actually bring people on who work with MLB contracts that can talk about it.
We should definitely do that.
If you want that and you're listening and you want somebody who understands the contract world of Major League Baseball,
because my knowledge is very, very limited.
And text and call and let us know.
Yeah.
And I'll work on getting somebody on here once the strike is over, once the work stoppage is over. There's a lot that goes into players wanting to have more power, more pay for their players. That would hurt mid-market teams, which is why the MLB is saying, hey, we really can't give this much more money on this side. We need to do more that's going to help the mid-markets. So, for example, the MLB wants to expand to 14 teams on the playoffs.
On the playoffs.
I don't think that's competitively enhancing.
I don't like
playoffs. And as a counter, the MLBPA says, okay, well, let's do 12 teams. Because you do want to give the Milwaukee Brewers a very good example for a mid-market team.
Yeah.
You want to give the Milwaukee Brewers an opportunity to compete. Which, if they're having to compete and overpay their guys after 5 years, it's not really going to help them. But I do like the compensating with picks if you don't manipulate service time.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's several players. Chris Bryant was actually a big one that there was a lawsuit on a few years ago where Chris Bryant was ready to play in the major leagues. And the Cubs said, no, we're sending you back down because we just cannot afford for you to be a free agent a year before you would be otherwise. So we're going to push you back 3 months. We're going to take you in a few months, and then once that hits, we'll bring you up, and now we can keep you an extra year.
Right.
Which now he's not even a Cub anymore anyway, but
Yeah.
But they kept it for an extra year by manipulating his service time, which means that he was living off of hot dogs and peanut butter and jelly sandwiches for an extra few months.
Right, just like all minor leaguers do.
Just like all minor leagers do, because he was good enough to be in the major leagues, but they didn't want him to be up there yet.
Yeah.
So he was still living on a in a bad apartment in AAA.
What's the current? How many teams are currently in the playoffs each year?
That's a question because they changed it last year.
Right.
MLB playoff.
Well, you have 3 people from the division,
Right.
so that's 6, and you have 2.
7 teams from each side. So right now it's a 14 teams.
Okay.
And that's right, because that's what the MLB wants to keep that.
Right.
And that's what it was last year. We saw some teams are like, why is this team in the playoffs?
That's what I related to what just happened in the NFL right now, right? You looked at the NFL,
7 seed.
and the Eagles and the Steelers were not competitive in their playoff games.
They were not fun teams to watch in the playoffs. They should not have been in the playoffs.
They weren't competitive. And Ben Roethlisberger even said that going into the game. He said, we're not a good team. I'm not sure we should even be in the playoffs.
Right.
That's a 20-year veteran of the NFL who knows what good teams look like because he's won 2 Super Bowls. And so that's kind of what I think about. Yes, you want to give more teams the option of being in the playoffs because it's good for their city, right? It's good for the fans. They get invested in their team. All that stuff is amazing. But being in the playoffs is something you have to earn. And you have to earn that over a 162-game season. And if you deserve to get into the playoffs, you do. And I like the 2 wildcard spots. The wildcard game is really exciting. We talked about it heavily in Season 2 in our playoff edition, right? Mm-hmm. Or in Season 1 in our playoff edition, which was exciting for us.
Yes.
The 1-game playoff. Who are you going to pitch? And then if you win, who are you going to start game? All that stuff is
last
great.
Year it was 10
fun.
teams.
It was fun.
So last year was fun. Now imagine 4 additional teams on top of that.
Yeah,
and you have a team that is 2 games under 500, but they happen to stumble into that last 7th spot, and it's just, well, great. And then what happens if, any given day a team can beat a team?
Right.
If they happen to win that game, and now they're going to a best of 5 series against significantly 100-win team.
Right.
When you've won 75 to 80 games all year.
Right.
Does that team deserve to be in a 5-game playoffs against a 100-win team?
Right.
And will that be fun for TV? Now, does it give the opportunity for that Cincinnati Reds team who can't necessarily compete in the market against the Dodgers? Well, sure. I mean, good for them for making the playoffs or win their division.
Right.
I mean, I'm looking at the Central right now, and the Cubs aren't a major market spending team. The Cardinals aren't. The Pirates aren't. The Reds aren't. I mean, the Milwaukee Brewers aren't. There's no major spending team in the Central. So at that point, win your division or be in one of those top 2 spots.
Right.
There's 5 teams from each league making the playoffs. I think that's a lot of fun.
I love the 5 teams from each league.
Right now, the MLBPA's counter is 6 teams.
6 teams from each
Which I
league.
still think is too much.
Too much.
But, I mean, if that's your counter to make things happen, great.
Yeah, I do. I really like this. I like the obviously division leaders win, and then you got 2 wild cards.
Yes,
I like that.
So much fun.
10 teams is great.
Yeah,
is
last
great.
year was a lot of fun.
Is really great. And I also just pulled up this graphic that Talking Baseball posted. Is another amazing podcast. If you like baseball, you should listen to that one. They do a really good job. But they posted the standings.
I'll just tell you what they say.
Yeah, don't just listen to ours. We'll give you the information. Sure. Anyways, they posted a graphic of the standings of Major League Baseball from the 2010 season on. So all standings from 2010 all the way up to now. And it's very interesting to see who's winning the division over the last 12 years. So you got the Oakland A's.
Sure.
So I mean, it's always it's actually very funny to see that because they're always consistently always in the race.
Sabermetrics.
But you wouldn't expect them to be there over a 12-year span.
Over the Angels.
Over the Angels.
The Astros. Well, I guess the Astros.
The Astros have been good the last 5 years.
Yeah.
And then the next Cleveland Indians, or Cleveland Guardians, lead their division over the last 12 years, and the Yankees.
And you have a bunch of mid-market teams in the Central.
But the interesting one in the Yankees division is that the Blue Jays are second, not the Red Sox.
That's Tampa Bay.
Tampa Bay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which, they've had a lot of success.
So I thought that was interesting. Yeah. And then you look into the National League, Dodgers close by with the Giants. The most significant games ahead over the last 12 years is the Cardinals over the second place team, which is the Milwaukee Brewers. They're 72 games behind over a 12-year span, which is incredible. And then Washington and Atlanta are basically neck and neck for the last division.
When we talk about the mid-markets, right, the major market team in the West is, the Angels. They have a lot of money to spend. And the A's, who are by choice a mid-market team because they never overspend.
You speak of this, the Angels is now...
It's a 36-game difference.
The Angels, 10 years ago, spent their biggest money on Pujols and Hamilton.
And C.J. Wilson.
Yes. And it didn't pan out for them.
Which we're going to talk about one of their biggest spendings.
Didn't pan out for them at all, right?
Yankees, big spending team. Nationals are a big spending team, but not as big as you might think they are. Obviously, you look at the Mets just did, which we'll get into in a few minutes. What the Mets just did is insane. The Cardinals don't spend, and of course the Dodgers overspend, and they're significantly higher than the Giants, 111 games, which is actually the highest.
Oh, I thought it said 11 games.
That's the highest.
That says 111 games.
You also have a billionaire.
Excuse me, I misspoke. My apologies. Yeah, 111 games. Holy cow.
Yeah, significant.
And the Giants have 3 World Series titles in that span. And the Dodgers have 1.
But the Giants were never the overpoweringly good team. They consistently came in the wild card, and they would just get out at the right time.
Right.
It was just fun.
Amazing. So I thought that was cool. Okay. Let's roll now into some of these trades.
Cool.
Unless we have any more about
trades, but we're going to talk a lot about.
Oh, I have a question though.
Yes.
Speaking of the lockdown and spring training and baseball season starting on time, just your specific opinion. I'm going to a bachelor party in the end of March 27th. We're trying to go to a spring training game.
Okay.
Do you think spring training will be pushed back? Do you think I'll be able to go to a game? Do you think season will start on time?
I have no idea.
Tough, right?
Depends on who you ask.
Yeah, it's tough.
I've talked to several people on the team side. I've talked to several people on the player side.
Yeah.
And it seems that nobody knows.
No one has a concrete
Nobody
answer.
actually has a concrete. Everybody right now is ready to go. Everybody is functioning under the assumption that there will be an agreement soon, so that spring training can start on time. Everybody can get back into shape where they need to, which they're already should be doing everything on their own, but go right into it. Should be. Everybody's operating under that assumption. I think this week, which we will know a lot more by the time this episode drops.
Because they're having conversations this week.
The conversations happen today. Conversations are going to continue tomorrow, probably continue the next day. Then there's going to be a big public, probably, they're not doing this right or they're not doing that right. And we're going to see that. There's going to be breakdowns and they're going to restart again next week. And I think that's how it's going to go for the next couple of weeks.
Okay.
Because it's all negotiating tactics. Even if things are going well, one of the sides might still say, hey, this is going horribly.
Right.
Just to push the needle a little bit further.
Well, we'll keep you updated through this pod and through our social media channels. So follow us on Twitter and Instagram.
Yes, absolutely.
Cheers. All right, on to the trades.
Offseason. So you keep on saying trades.
Trades, offseason.
Offseason, because it's not all trades. Actually, it's mostly not trades.
It's mostly signings.
Some good trades. I'll give you an example. One of the trades I really like is the Red Sox sent Hunter Renfroe to the Brewers and got back Jacob Bradley Jr., who started off with the Red Sox.
Right.
So that's really fun for them. You also have one of my winners of the offseason. The Mariners traded for Adam Frazier. And the Padres used a big infield piece to add to what they need, which is a lefty reliever in Raymond Kerr and outfielder Corey Rozier. Other than that, a lot of really fun signings.
Yeah, signings.
I don't know if you want to start it off, but I have some notes about how things went.
We'll start with the Rangers.
No, let's not start with the Rangers. I actually want to start with the first signing of the offseason.
Okay.
First signing of the offseason, Justin Verlander.
Oh, yeah.
Justin Verlander, man. The guy's 39 years old. He's thrown 73 pitches over the last 2 years. He's coming off of Tommy John surgery.
73 pitches over the last 2 years.
2 years.
Sheesh.
And he got off a 2-year, $50 million contract with that second year being an option. And this was after the Yankees were going after him. Ooh. And Verlander went back to the Yankees and said, hey, I'm getting 2 years, $50 million. That second year is a player option. Can you match that? And the Yankees said, absolutely not. We're not doing that.
Right.
So the Astros just spent $50 million on a guy who is probably going to use that second year because I can't imagine he's going to surpass $25 million value.
Right.
After not throwing for 2 years.
Sheesh.
So that just jacked up the entire market. So I'm going to go down like these little lists on the pitcher side. I'm going to show you where that changed the market, and then we're going to go back to the Rangers and see how they changed the market. Okay. Let's start with the Astros. So the Astros signed Verlander, 39 years old, through 73 pitches over 2 years, coming off Tommy John surgery, and now is getting $25 million a year over 2 years with a player deal. So then you have the Toronto Blue Jays who went and signed Kevin Gausman from the Giants, who had a great year. Great value, $22 million a year, great value for his age, coming off 3 ERA with a 3.02 FIP, which is one of the best in the leagues. It's worth noting that Gausman actually turned down more money from the Mets to land with the Blue Jays. So that's worth noting. And then the very next day, this was puzzling to me, the Mariners signed Robbie Ray, the defending American Cy Young winner.
Big lefty.
American League Cy Young winner, left the Blue Jays for 5 years, $115 million. So 5 years, $5 million more than Gausman got from the Blue Jays. So they let the defending American League Cy Young winner walk to go sign for $5 million more on the same length deal as Gausman. $23 million a year, another fantastic value for a reigning Cy Young award. Question is, at the end of the year, by October, granted the Mariners do what they're supposed to be doing, and they actually compete, which we talked a lot about this past October. We would love to see the Mariners make a run in the playoffs. In October, he's going to turn 31 years old. So can he pitch to his $23 million per year value? That is hard to do. But that's what the market is, right? You're going to have to overpay for a starter, especially when one of the starters in that market just got $25 million per year at 39 years old and not pitching. So that's why I want to go back to Verlander, because that Verlander deal actually screwed up the market. So then you want to fast forward to Scherzer. Now you have a guy who is 1.5 years younger than Verlander, who has just been phenomenal over the last 3 years. The Mets lost Steven Matz, who had just signed with the Cardinals for 4 years, $44 million. Steven Matz went to the Cardinals, got a 4-year, $44 million. That's $11 million a year, which is pretty good value for what you're getting out of him. Good ground ball pitcher. And Steve Cohen, the owner of the Mets, said, hey, before you sign anything, come back to us and give us the offer. Well, what the Cardinals probably did is say, hey, we're going to give you 4 years, $44 million, but you can't go back to the Mets and tell them what we're giving you. You accept it now, or you go back and get whatever they're going to give you. So he signed with the Cardinals, and then famously Steve Cohen blasted Steve Matz's agent. Just pissed. So then he turns around and he goes and signs Max Scherzer, who again, a year and a half younger than Verlander, who just got $25 million per year, coming off Tommy John. So he gets 3 years, $130 million. That's now $43 million per year. Because Steve Cohen was pissed. Because he lost out on Matz. Because he lost out on Gausman. And now he's like, all right, well, I'm not going to lose out on Scherzer now. So he goes and overspends. They always say, Uncle Steve's not scared to spend money. He wouldn't spend money. We can all agree that Scherzer warranted significantly more than the $25 million offered to Verlander. Now, if Verlander doesn't sign that deal, Scherzer might be signing a $25 to $27 million deal.
Right, that might have been the cap.
That's the cap. But Verlander signing that deal increased the value of Gausman, increased the value of Ray, and significantly increased the value of Scherzer. So, all in all, the Astros completely screwed up the market.
Where does Stroman sign?
Stroman ended up signing a deal, which again, we go to he's probably worth about $13-14 million per year. Signed $23.6 million per year with the Cubs, who are not competing for a playoff spot right now.
No.
They're rebuilding. But they want Stroman in that clubhouse. So he went and signed a 3-year, $71 million deal that is going to be 2 years because he's going to basically bet on himself and play for $24 million a year over the next 2 years and then reject the third year, and he's going to go back on the open market. At which point the Cubs are going to say, well, we're not going to overpay you. Because if he's making $24 million now, he's probably going to try for $28 to $30 million on his last ever contract in 3 years.
Yeah,
right?
if he has 2 really, really solid years.
So that kind of puzzled me with the Cubs because, we're both Cardinals fans. We both thought, the Cardinals needed a ground ball pitcher because they have a Gold Glove defense. The entire defense is just full of Gold Glove.
Won Gold Gloves
right?
last year.
All of them are. Potential Gold Glove winners, and so you would think, okay, Marcus Stroman, he loves the fans. It's a good atmosphere for him. It's a good atmosphere for the team with bringing him in, and he's a ground ball pitcher. His FIP was one of the tops of the league. Which, if people don't know, FIP is basically what happens in the field based on the pitch. So FIP, the lower the FIP, the better the pitcher is on plays that got put in the play, on balls that got put in the play. So he was just phenomenal at that because he's a ground ball pitcher. Instead, he bypasses the Mets. He goes away from the Angels, the Dodgers, the Mets, the Blue Jays, the Cardinals, all really hot on Stroman's tail, and he signs with the Cubs, which was like the dark horse. Who the hell saw that coming? And that's where he went again because Verlander signed a $25 million deal, which just inflated the entire starting pitcher market.
Well, on this podcast, Champions Adjust, we love Marcus Stroman.
We do.
And we wish he was a Cardinal, but that's okay. He's going to crush it in Chicago for the next 2 years. That's a great city for him to be in, for him to raise his new baby boy. And
congratulations, Marcus Stroman. We'll do a little clip that we'll tweet out and tag you in it. So since you're very active on social media, I want to thank you for being so active on social media, being very mental health positive, and wish we were going to see you in Cardinals red, but excited to see you do really good things for the city of Chicago.
Hell yeah, Stroman. Love you. Keep doing what you're doing.
So some other really cool things that we saw was the Angels went and signed Raisel Iglesias. 4 years, $58 million, which is just phenomenal as a top relief pitcher. $14.8 million per year. Really good value for one of the top relief pitchers on the market. But then they went and did something ridiculous. Noah Syndergaard has pitched 2 innings since 2019. 2. And the Angels
he's on the Verlander. He's on the
Verlander train. But at least Verlander has a Cy Young in his name, and he was just phenomenal. And he's a proven winner. Noah Syndergaard has always been right there, but not quite there. And the Angels go and give him 1 year, $21 million. I would say, and it's a whole different thing. We're going to go with the winners and losers, but I would say one of the biggest winners of the free agency so far has been Noah Syndergaard. The guy got $21 million and hasn't thrown a pitch in 2 years.
Yep.
That's insane. And it all goes back to, what is Verlander getting?
Verlander here, top of the chain.
Verlander just $25 million a year after Tommy John. So, hey, $43 million to Scherzer. You got $21 million to Syndergaard, and in between, everybody's value just goes up by about $10 million a year. And it's just,
wow.
It was fun to watch because I love watching players get paid.
Yeah.
I think it's so much fun to watch players get paid. And you also saw that the big players in the market, the Dodgers and the Yankees and the Red Sox, didn't overspend because they don't know what the luxury tax is going to be, and they have to be smart. And these mid-market teams are like, no, whatever. We're going to get the players we can get when we can get them.
Yeah.
So that'll be fun. Then we go to the Texas Rangers. Across a week, not only did the Texas Rangers spend over $500 million across 4 players, but they didn't get that much better doing it.
That's the interesting part.
They're not that much. They're not a playoff team. They spent $500 million, and they're not a playoff team right now. Unless they add 18 teams. It's right. Hey, you have to be really bad enough to make playoffs.
And that's a 25 team playoff.
Their average wins probably went up about 12 games. They probably just won another 12 games. Which
is not good from the 7 they won last year.
They won 6. They're a 72-win team right now.
Yeah.
And then they're not done, There's rumors that they're going to go get Kershaw, which I think would be a terrible idea because you're going to overpay for a pitcher who, again, is probably in that Verlander mark where you're not really doing it anymore. There's a couple other really solid pitchers on the market, though, that the Rangers can go after. From a marketability perspective, the Rangers won significantly.
Yeah.
But they're really not that much better. And then you look at what they did to the market. You have the Rangers who went and got, let me go up to my notes, they signed Marcus Semien away from the Blue Jays, which made the Blue Jays significantly worse.
Yeah.
It's hard to replace 45 home runs in a season, which he's not going to do again because he's 31 years old. But he gets $25 million a year, 7 years, $175 million. Okay, cool. So the shortstop woes are over in Texas, right? Well, at the same time, they swoop in and they get John Gray, who's number 1, number 2, arguably pitcher for a terrible Rockies team. Mm-hmm. And they sign him to 4 years, $56 million. That's $14 million a year, which is good third round value, or third pitcher value, which is exactly where he's probably going to land in that rotation once it's all said and done. And then the Rangers turn around and they go get Corey Seager on top of that.
10 years.
They get a 10-year, $325 million agreement.
10 years.
Which is about what everybody expected Correa to get.
Right.
So now who can afford Correa? Same thing. Okay, Verner just signed $25 million. Who can afford Scherzer now? Because he's going to ask for way more. Well, Corey Seager, who's arguably the third best shortstop in the top 5 shortstops of that market.
Yeah.
Probably number 3 because he's a great hitter when he's healthy. And he's above average defensively. That's the thing about Corey Seager. Great hitter, above average fielder, struggles to stay on the field for 162 games. And now he's getting $32.5 million per year, while Trevor Story, arguably a better fit, and Carlos Correa, arguably the best player to hit free agent in the last 5 years, are just sitting there, okay, cool. I'm going to ask for $40 million a year.
Right.
Who's going to afford that? There's 2 to 3 teams that can possibly afford that, maybe. So that actually sets up a really fun situation for the Rangers because Isaiah Kiner-Falefa, who can play any position, including catcher, is going to be the new third baseman. You have Semien at second base. You have Corey Seager at shortstop. And Josh Jung is on his way up. Will be in AAA next year to see what he can do. So the Rangers are a fun team, but again, they're a 72 to 75 win team. Unless they can go get good pitching.
Unless they have a pitching staff.
And they've spent $500 million on players who did not make them significantly better on the winning percentage.
On 2 middle infielders.
So much more fun to watch.
Yeah.
I mean, it will be a lot of fun to watch them score 20 runs. It'll be a 5-hour, 47-run game. But they'll score 20 of those 47 runs.
Yeah. I hope the Rangers fans come out and watch them play, though.
I do, too.
So I hope that does bring some excitement to the fans here.
Sure.
In the DFW area to
in classic
go to the
DFW fashion. Everybody's like, we're winning the World Series. Well, wait a second.
Yeah,
maybe not.
Folks said about the Cowboys 3 wins into their season. So
talk about the Cowboys.
Anywho.
And then you look at the Tigers. Then we're kicking the tires on Carlos Correa. AJ Hinch is now who was the manager of the Trastros, if you will, is now the manager of the Tigers, who have a really young, fantastic core. You got Torkelson coming up. You have Green. You also have Grossman, Candelario, Badu, and Justin Shope, who are all just phenomenal pieces in that lineup. You had Javier Baez, who signed a 6-year, $140 million deal. That's $23.3 million per year. We can all agree that Javier Baez got his reputation with that Cubs team that won the World Series. When he's on, he's on.
Right.
He's pretty decent defensively. He's okay at the plate. Does he deserve $23.3 million per year? Probably not. But it's significantly less than they were going to have to pay Carlos Correa.
Right.
So again, Carlos Correa is just kind of sitting there. And it'll be good to have Baez's leadership in that locker room.
Sure.
So that'll be good. Anyway, so it was just, excuse my language, it was a shit show of a week for just people getting signed. And people, it was a lot of fun. People look at what the Mets did.
It was everywhere on Twitter.
Yeah, the Mets went and signed Starling Marte, who's the top center fielder.
Yeah.
They went and got Eduardo Escobar. Let's see, Marte signed to a 4-year, $78 million deal. Earlier that night, they signed to a 2-year, $20 million deal for infielder Eduardo Escobar. They went and got Scherzer after that. So basically, the Mets just opened up the pocketbook after they lost Steven Matz.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, the Cardinals cardinaled by making one splash and saying, okay, I think we're pretty set.
They still have their whole core from last year.
They'll add a big bat, too, because that's another thing that is expected in the offseason. We're going to see the universal DH occur because that would be great for the player side. because you look at all the great players like Nelson Cruz and David Ortiz who were able to make a career out of being a DH.
Right, I'm just hitting the
American
baseball.
League side.
Yeah.
So why not National League side too? That's been a lot of talking on my part. I have my winners and losers too, but I'm going to let you talk first.
I don't have anything to say. This is your area of expertise.
Great.
Yes.
I spent about a week and a half just like glued to my phone on Twitter and glued to just every article I could find, and just I was talking to a general manager in the NBA about it actually through my network. I was talking to he and I were talking. He's like, man, this is insane.
Yeah.
This and that. I can't believe Stephen Cohen did that. But this is crazy that players are going to get paid this much money. All right, so here's my winners and losers.
Yeah, give me your top teams, top loser teams so far.
There's no teams. I'm going winners and losers, players in.
Okay.
So winners.
Top
I'm going to go. My top winning team right now is the Seattle Mariners. They went and got Adam Frazier and Robbie Ray. They didn't significantly overpay for either, considering the market, and they're still in the market for a Correa or another big bat like Chris Bryant or Kyle Schwarber. They're getting better. They were a pretty decent team who got better.
They competed well last year.
You look at the Toronto Blue Jays, they were a pretty decent team who did not get better.
Yeah,
They
right.
didn't.
Right.
And those were the two teams we were like, man, those teams are right there.
On the verge.
The Blue Jays did not get better. The Mariners did. Robbie Ray, Adam Frazier, go get Bryant, go get Schwarber, maybe go get Correa. They're going to be a lot of fun. Javier Baez got overpaid, $23.6 million.
He's a winner, though.
Dropped down a tier, but he's going to be good for the leadership. Noah Syndergaard, $21 million. And he might not pitch more than 2 months, depending on what his health looks like.
Right.
I would say the Texas Rangers, too. The Texas Rangers were a big winner because they showed their willingness to commit to spending. They've basically spent year after year of failed buildup and being really frugal on the market. They also got John Gray, who I think is a underrated signing for them. A lot of people are, who the hell is John Gray? Why is he like a big signing for them? He had pretty good numbers in a hitter's ballpark.
Yeah.
Now you come into what is now, just a regular ballpark with a new field. That'll be fun. Losers, Blue Jays. They got good value for Gausman, but why Gausman over Robbie Ray, who had just won an American League Cy Young Award, who got the same amount of years for $5 million more, and went to the Mariners, who they're competing for that other wild card spot last year, and you let him go there. They also lost Marcus Semien and didn't even attempt to replace him. So there's no real indication they're going to try to make any more significant moves after Gausman. So what are the Blue Jays going to be, if not a year older, which is not a bad thing. They're a year more mature, but they've lost the Cy Young Award winner, and they've lost Semien, who was an MVP
45
candidate.
bombs.
Yeah. Houston Astros, I have a really tough time saying the Houston Astros got worse because they are really well built just for the future. Like, as much as everybody loves to hate on the Astros, they're really well built.
Right.
They have a lot of really fun talent in that system right now. They don't need Correa. Doesn't help to lose to Carlos Correa, though. They also went and lost Yimi Garcia, who signed a 2-year, $11 million deal in Toronto. So that's another deal the Blue Jays made, who I actually like that deal a lot because you're looking at about $5.5 million to be a mid reliever, like a strong mid reliever. And then Kendall Graveman, who was the Astros closer, and he signed with the White Sox, 3 years, $24 million. So instead, the Astros went and signed Neris, who's a good ground ball pitcher, to 2 years, $17 million. But why not overspend a little bit on Graveman and keep him as opposed to going to get Neris? That didn't make a ton of sense to me. The Astros also are watching a team 4 hours away from them spend $500 million to become one of the more exciting teams in the offseason, and they're not making any real moves. But they lost Carlos Correa, and are they going to be able to keep Correa? I mean, Correa turned down 5 years, $160 million before the offseason. Now his value is significantly higher, so I don't think the Astros can even pretend to afford him unless they want to say, hey, we're going to give you $50 million to stay 1 year. But does that make any sense?
Maybe.
Who knows? The Dodgers, man. The Dodgers had a really rough few days. They lost Scherzer and Seeger across 2 days. They had to overpay Chris Taylor, who's the super utility player. But there were several teams that were about to sign on with Chris Taylor, and he was really close to signing with a few different teams. Dodgers overpaid to keep him, and then they, as a result, miss out on Stroman. So Dodgers got worse. The Yankees haven't done anything.
Not yet.
Yankees haven't done it. There's a lot of talk about the rise of right now. They're a loser. Story and Correa are still in the market. There's been no movement for a team that really just isn't good enough to make a deep run. To me, that doesn't scream New York Yankees watching everybody else spend while they just get worse.
Right.
Because there's already some really stacked teams in that division. And the Yankees aren't. They have Joey Gallo, who hit below 200. Right. And they were kicking the tires around trading him. They were also kicking the tires around trading for Isaiah Kiner-Falefa at one point. And I think that's something that we're still going to see when things pick back up from the Yankees or from the Rangers, which I think would be fun because the Rangers could then get more trade pieces out of that. So those are my winners and my losers of a really fun offseason so far. There's a lot of names I did not say because, time constraints of life.
Sure. Amazing, though.
That is my...
amazing job. Let's give it up for Coach Bodson.
Thank you.
No, that was sweet, man. Wow.
A lot of talking.
My job here is I'll give some insight on a few things.
Right.
But I like to lead you into the deep baseball insight here.
Sure.
And that was amazing.
Thank you.
Well done.
Appreciate that.
Well done.
And like I said before, if listeners have interest in having people in the know of contract and how these things work, I have to kick the tires around on who would do that because there's these guys' jobs are like director of player personnel,
right?
Things like that.
It's pretty intense positions.
It might not be okay for them to come on a random podcast that has 60 listeners and say, hey,
yeah, 60 fucking sweet listeners.
I agree. No,
60 of the best listeners.
But I'm saying if you guys want to hear more of these people, then you need to get all of your friends to listen to.
Yeah, you need to share it with all
listeners, 300 listeners, 400.
All of your teams.
I want a freaking office like John Boy just got, man. I want to build out an office. So get us there, and then I'll start bringing assistant general managers on the show.
Sweet.
Let's do it.
I mean, I'm in.
I want to quit my day job just to do this for a living.
Okay.
I hope nobody heard me hit my job. I actually really like my job.
We can do. Yeah, we'll do it.
All right,
great.
Cool. What you got?
Last bit of thing. I think we'll just briefly touch on it. I spoke about it earlier, but Coach Bodson and I are working with Wolfpack Baseball now.
Wolfpack Baseball.
We have 20
organization.
23, 20,
21, potentially 22.
21, potentially 22 amazing young athletes, like really trying to get after it in the baseball world. I'm focused on them with their mindset, which I like to call the Champions Adjust Mindset Program, is basically what I've implemented with our team, and it's going really well. Coach Bodson currently is implementing his long toss program with them.
We're focusing on the pitchers.
Yeah, and we're both just getting after
focusing on alleviating some pressure because
a
lot of these guys have been in a really good spot, but with the organization that we don't have to name that we were coaching with in the past, it was really all about winning in that organization. And a lot of the coaches as such, and it's not necessarily the fault of the coaches I've found because of the environment, but there's a lot of pressure on those coaches to win. And as such, a lot of pressure from the coaches get put onto the players to not make mistakes, which I, as a coach, really love not having to stress about wins and losses as much because now I can really do what I love, which is help you understand that it's okay to make mistakes, which we preach all the time. But as you saw firsthand, I had a really tough time always practicing it because I felt a lot of pressure from higher up to show results. But with this, it's more, hey, we're getting you ready for high school. We're getting you ready to compete at the highest level. In fact, we have a lot of 13U age group kids who are going to be playing at the high school distances. Against a lot of players who are getting ready to go into high school. They're about 2 years away from high school. The kids we're going to be playing against are going to high school next year. So it's going to be a lot of fun to really get these kids ready to compete at the highest level that they can.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
It's amazing. The age group that we're coaching at 13 is all about making mistakes. It's so important because if you make them now, if you learn from them now, if you adjust, if you pivot, if you overcome, if you welcome obstacles now in what should be low pressure environments curated by the environment of the coaches that we practice what we preach and our words line up with our actions, if all of those things align, then when kids get to varsity in high school, Division I NCAA tournament, or beyond potentially, then the mistakes they make there, that's already happened to them. So they know how to overcome it. They know how to adjust more quickly. They know how to invite that pressure in. They understand what it's like to be the guy hitting at the dish with a runner on second and third, 1 out, down 1 run. Right? Yeah. They invite that kind of energy into their life. They invite that pressure into their life because they see it as a privilege, not as something that's inherently going to determine the value of them as a person.
Right.
And so that's what we're trying to teach them now. And then you try to extrapolate some of those skills into other areas of their life so they become these well-rounded, compassionate, kind, but also competitive individuals. And I think that's what I think about when I'm teaching them these things that are baseball related, but as we talk about so much on this podcast, that are life related. That's why we play sports. Sports parallel life. Life is hard. Sports are hard. But we as a collective, people, players, people watching, general folk who don't play sports are all tougher than the things that we face. And so that's what it's important. That's what it's about. And we're happy to be with Wolfpack Baseball, sponsored by Champions Adjust, which I think is pretty sweet.
Yeah.
And so that's what we're doing.
Yeah.
That's where we're at. And
much more relaxing atmosphere, and but very competitive, but very relaxing, and not really having to worry about what XYZ person might say if we don't win this weekend.
Yeah.
Okay, we went 0-3. Well, you need to get better because if not this, and this. Well,
we are getting better.
Absolute best.
We are getting better. 100%.
We definitely got better. We just didn't win. That's not really what life is all about right now. We talked about yesterday at practice, actually. Every player who's in the Hall of Fame was in the Hall of Failure first, right? Babe Ruth, when he led MLB in career home runs, also at the time led in strikeouts. He hit the Hall of Failure before he hit the Hall of Fame, right? And we talked at the end of practice yesterday about how you will not succeed until you fail first. And that is just with life in general. You will not succeed in life if you don't know how to fail. So if you're listening and you're a little hard on yourself, hey, this didn't go very well, or I'm not where I want to be, that's okay. There's time. Put in the work. It is very simple to put in the work. It's not easy to put in the work. If it was easy, everybody would do it. But it's pretty simple. It's a lot easier not to, but it's very simple to go put in the work and outwork your opponent, outwork your teammates, outwork your competition, and give yourself grace because mistakes will happen, and that's how you're going to get better day in and day out.
Exactly. That's exactly right. I'll leave you with this to think about in the week to our next episode, or whenever you listen to the next episode, you can think about this point I'm about to make. So where you are now, right, is point A. Okay, who you are every day, how you're showing up in the world is this point right now. Along this really up and down windy road is who you have the potential to be, right? This is your ultimate best version of you, right? It's infinite potential. All you're trying to do every day is close that gap just a little bit each and every day. And that journey is wild. That's what's part of it. That's what's so fun about it. It's a wild journey of twists and turns and U-turns and left and rights. But you can do it because champions adjust. Always. Cheers. Love you. Much love. Thanks for watching.
Thanks for listening.
We'll be back soon. Season 2. Oh, yeah.
Look forward to it.